Have you ever shared something deeply personal with a man, hoping it would bring you closer, only to feel regret or even embarrassment later? You're not alone. In a world that constantly encourages women to be open, vulnerable, and emotionally available, there's a hidden strength in keeping certain things to yourself. Not because you're being secretive, but because not everything needs to be exposed. Keeping things private isn't about hiding, it's about protecting yourself. It's about being in control of your own story, knowing when to speak and when silence says more. What many women don't realize is that men are wired differently when it comes to emotional sharing. Some things once said can change the way he sees you, and not always in the way you hope. That doesn't mean he's unkind or manipulative. It just means that some truths hit men differently, especially when shared too early or without thought. This video is about helping you take back your emotional strength. You'll see how keeping a bit of mystery not only gives you more control, but also builds more respect and lasting attraction. You'll start to see privacy not as a wall, but as a boundary that shows your worth. Before you open up your entire heart to someone who hasn't earned that space, let's talk about 5 key things women should never share too soon with a man. Sometimes what you hold back can be more powerful than what you reveal, and in some cases, much more. Let's begin with the first thing you should keep to yourself: your deepest insecurities, especially the ones you haven't fully made peace with yet. This isn't about avoiding healthy vulnerability or hiding your emotions in a loving, stable relationship. This is about those deep, still healing parts of you. Wounds from past trauma, comparisons, shame, or fear. When you share these parts too early or without purpose, it can create problems. Here's the truth. When you show someone your emotional weak spots before you've worked through them yourself, you risk 2 big things. First, you hand over emotional power without knowing if that person will treat it kindly. Second, you may unknowingly teach them to see you only through your pain instead of your strength. Men especially may not know what to do with that level of emotional depth so soon. A kind man might try to be gentle, but others, especially early in a relationship, might begin to label you based on what you've revealed. You say, "I've always felt insecure about my body," and even if he never says it, he might now associate you with low self-esteem. You say, "I have trouble trusting people because my ex betrayed me," and now he might act differently. Maybe he walks on eggshells, or worse, sees an opportunity to use that fear. Oversharing these kinds of truths too soon can also shift the balance of attraction. Even though it may feel unfair, confidence is incredibly attractive. This doesn't mean you need to act like everything's perfect, but it does mean leading with your strength, not your scars. You may think opening up completely builds a stronger bond, but often it builds emotional weight, unhealthy dependence, and expectations that haven't been earned. Sharing too fast can also create silent pressure, like saying, "Now that I've told you this, you owe me kindness." And that's not a fair exchange when the trust isn't there yet. Timing matters. There's a time for deep conversations, but not right away. In the early stages of dating or a new relationship, you're still learning about him. Is he emotionally mature? Does he know how to hold space for your feelings, or does he judge and keep score? You learn those answers by watching, not by revealing everything too soon. This doesn't mean you should bottle up your feelings. It means learning when to open up. It's okay to say, "I've been through things that shaped who I am, and I'll share more when the time is right." That's not avoiding, it's wisdom. Instead of describing your struggles in detail, let your actions speak. Show how you carry yourself through life, Let your strength, not your struggle, be the story he sees first. That's much more attractive than saying, "Here's all that's wrong with me. Please love me anyway." The right man will honor your boundaries and earn your trust slowly. And when you finally do open up, it will come from strength, not need. Remember, your insecurities aren't your identity. They're just a part of your journey. Don't give the most sensitive parts of yourself to someone who hasn't shown they can handle them with care. You don't owe anyone full access to your inner world just because there's chemistry. Save that for someone who's shown commitment, not just curiosity. When you protect your emotional world, you protect your self-worth. And no man should have the power to take that away. Let's move on to one of the biggest mistakes women make when trying to build trust: sharing too much about past relationships. You might feel like you're being real and open by talking about your ex, what he did, how it hurt, and why you stayed longer than you should have. Maybe you want to show how much you've learned, or maybe you just want him to understand. But here's the issue. Men usually don't hear that story the way you think they do. When you talk about how your ex lied, cheated, or used your kindness, you might be trying to share your strength or your healing, but in his mind, other thoughts can pop up, and none of them really help you. First, you open yourself up to being unconsciously compared to your ex. You bring that past into the present. Now your new partner is quietly measuring your emotional baggage. He might wonder, why did she stay? Is she still attached? Has she even healed? Not great questions when you're trying to start something new. Second, by revealing the details of what hurt you, you hand him a playbook. He now knows what triggers you, what buttons to push, and where your walls are. A kind man might be careful, but someone with poor intentions now has a map of your weak points. That's a risk you don't want to take. Third, and maybe most important, going too deep into past relationship drama changes the mood. Instead of building something fresh together, you're tying your present to old pain. That can drain the energy out of a relationship before it really begins. Remember, he didn't show up to be your therapist. If every emotional moment turns into a story about your ex, he'll start to feel like he's competing with your past, and he won't win. Eventually, he'll lose interest. There's a big difference between honesty and emotional overexposure. You don't owe anyone a full download of your dating history. You owe them your honesty, but not the painful details. Instead of saying too much, you can say something simple like, "I've gone through things that taught me what I need and what I deserve." That's all it takes. It shows wisdom without dragging your emotional history into the now. The more he focuses on who hurt you before, the harder it is for him to see who he needs to be now. And let's be real. If he were talking non-stop about his ex, wouldn't that feel like a red flag? It would feel like he's not ready to move forward. The same rule applies both ways. Emotional discipline is attractive. Your past is not a confession you're required to make. It's a private lesson, and only you decide when or if it should be shared. Let him fall for who you are today, not the heartbreaks you've survived. There's quiet power in choosing silence, and a special kind of respect in saying, "I've grown, and I'll share that journey when I'm ready." Women who know their worth protect both their hearts and their history. Now let's talk about one of the most overlooked boundaries in today's dating world: money. More specifically, your personal finances. Here's the truth. No matter how close you feel, how deep the connection seems, or how much love is in the air, your financial life is not something a man needs full access to, especially in the early stages. You might believe that if it's serious, transparency about money builds trust, yes, but only at the right time, early on, even in some long-term relationships. Revealing too much about your income, savings, debts, or spending habits can quietly shift the relationship dynamic in ways you won't notice until things have changed. Let's start with how a man might see your money transparency. If you're doing well, strong job, savings, independence, some men will admire it. Others, though, may feel uneasy, competitive, or insecure. Some men still tie their worth to being the provider, and if you don't seem to need them, they might start to wonder where they fit in. Your success might become a silent source of discomfort. On the other hand, if you're struggling financially, debt, job issues, or past money mistakes, you may feel like you're being real and relatable. But depending on the man, it could change how he sees you. He might start viewing you as someone who needs help, someone who isn't his equal, or someone who brings extra stress. Even if he doesn't say it, the energy changes, and that shift can change everything. There's more. Once a man knows your financial habits, how much you make, what you save, how you spend, he may start forming quiet opinions. Worse, he might use that information to sway decisions or control dynamics in subtle ways. He might say, well, you can afford it, or didn't you say you make more than me? Suddenly, your income becomes ammunition in conversations or justifications for unbalanced effort. And that's a major red flag. Another danger is entitlement. If he knows you have money, he might expect you to pay for dinners, trips, bills, or help him when he's struggling. If you've been raised to be nurturing or generous, it's easy to slip into that role without realizing you're being taken advantage of. The truth is, financial boundaries are just as important as emotional boundaries. You can love someone and still protect your independence. You can be generous without being exploited, and you can support a partner without giving up your privacy. So what should you share and when? Here's the golden rule. Share your financial situation only after trust, consistency, and aligned values have been clearly established. Not just through words, but with proof. This means you've observed how he handles money, reacts to stress, manages responsibility, and whether he respects your independence. Until then, keep it simple. You can say, I'm financially stable, and I make decisions that align with my goals. That's enough. You don't need to share your salary, credit score, or what's in your bank account. Those are things for serious relationships, not casual dating or emotionally premature connections. Once money enters the conversation too early, the relationship starts operating under assumptions and expectations that weren't explicitly agreed upon. That's when resentment begins to grow. Protect your peace, protect your wallet, and most importantly, protect the privacy that keeps your power intact. Your finances are your business. Period. One of the most silent relationship killers, something many women never see coming, is sharing what your friends think about your man. It might sound harmless. You're venting, seeking support, or just passing along a comment from a close friend. But when you let him know what your friends really think about him, or worse, that you've been talking about your relationship behind his back, you unintentionally plant seeds of doubt, division, and defensiveness. That's hard to undo. Think about it. When your man opens up to you, he's trusting you with that space, not your friends. When he shares his struggles, his vulnerabilities, or his mistakes, he's opening himself to you. But if he feels like everything he says or does is going to be analyzed, judged, or ridiculed by people he hasn't even confided in, you're breaking something sacred, emotional. Now, let's be honest, we all need someone to talk to, and your friends are often your sounding board. But there's a difference between seeking wisdom and outsourcing your decisions. When every disagreement, complaint, or flaw he has is discussed with your group, You're not in a relationship with him anymore. You're in a relationship shaped by external opinions. And that's dangerous, because here's what happens next. Your friends start forming their own narratives. Maybe they don't like how he speaks, or what he does for work, or how he handled a disagreement. The more you vent, the more they collect ammunition. So when you're ready to forgive him, they're still holding on to the worst version of him you've described and reminding you why you shouldn't. Now you're torn between your heart and their words. Worse, when you tell him what your friends have said, you corner him. Maybe you think it'll motivate him to do better. Maybe you think it's harmless, but from his point of view, it feels like betrayal. It feels like being judged by people who don't know him. It feels like his relationship with you isn't between the two of you, but between him and a jury of women he didn't ask to be part of. Men don't forget that kind of exposure. They'll withdraw, become guarded, and sometimes stop showing up emotionally altogether because they no longer trust that their truth is safe with you. Now, let's switch perspectives. Imagine he was telling his friends everything about you. Every fight, every flaw, every personal detail. And then he told you what they all thought. How would you feel? Would you feel safe? Would you want to open up again? Probably not. Emotional loyalty means knowing what to keep between you and your partner. It means protecting the sacred space of your relationship, even when you're angry or uncertain. That doesn't mean you suffer in silence or ignore red flags. It means you confide wisely. You choose one trusted, mature voice, not a whole group, someone who gives grounded advice, not emotional reactions. And most importantly, it means never using your friends' opinions as ammunition in an argument. Saying, well, my friends think you're immature, or they all say I can do better, doesn't help you win. It guarantees you both lose, because even if he forgives you, those words stay burned in his memory. Your relationship is your journey, not a group project. Protect it, respect it, and sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is keep what your friends say exactly where it belongs, in private. Because love can survive many things, but public scrutiny isn't always one of them. Let's be real for a moment. Every woman has insecurities, whether it's your body, your past, your voice, your laugh, your career, or your family. There's always something that makes you feel less than on certain days. That's human. It's normal. But here's what's not helpful in love. Wearing those insecurities on your sleeve and offering them up to a man as if they define you. We live in a time where vulnerability is praised. And yes, vulnerability can build intimacy. But there's a fine line between being emotionally open and emotionally exposed. Oversharing your insecurities, especially too soon, doesn't make a man feel closer to you. It makes him see you as unsure of your own worth. And that shifts the entire emotional tone of how he relates to you. When you say, I know I'm not that pretty, or I'm probably too much for you, or you'll probably leave me like everyone else, what you think you're doing is being relatable or self-aware. What you're actually doing is teaching him how to view you. You're writing the script for how he should treat you. You're silently saying, I don't think I'm enough, so you probably shouldn't either. And that energy, it's repellent. Not because your flaws are unlovable, but because your self-perception becomes his first impression. It's hard to admire someone who constantly signals they don't admire themselves. Now here's the kicker. Most men won't tell you that your oversharing is making them pull away. They'll just fade. They'll get quiet. The chemistry will start to feel forced, and you'll wonder what went wrong, when in reality all you did was open a door that he wasn't ready or able to walk through. Men want to feel like they're building something with you, not constantly trying to lift you out of emotional quicksand. They want a partner, not a project. When you dump all your unprocessed insecurities on him, you're asking him to fix something that only you can heal. And yes, you deserve someone who holds space for you, someone who sees your softness and loves you through it. But here's the secret. That kind of love starts with you. You have to show up rooted in your own worth, not hoping someone else will water your confidence for you. You don't need to announce your insecurities for them to be valid. You don't need to pre-apologize for existing. You don't need to reveal every doubt in your head just to prove you're real. Being real means owning your presence, not shrinking from it. If something about yourself makes you uncomfortable, you get to work on it privately, or share it in pieces with someone who has earned the right to hear it. Because the more emotionally naked you are with someone who hasn't shown depth, safety, or consistency, the more likely you are to feel exposed, misunderstood, or worse, used. So, here's what to do instead. Focus on who you're becoming. Lead with the strength you've built through your journey, not the wounds that still ache. Let your energy say, yes, I've struggled. Yes, I've doubted. But I'm still standing, and I know what I bring to the table. Because the most magnetic thing a woman can ever be is secure in her silence, secure in her value, secure in knowing she is enough, without needing constant reassurance. Oversharing doesn't make you lovable, self-trust does. Let him fall for your light, not the shadows you haven't made peace with yet. You've made it this far for a reason. Maybe part of you already knew that you've been giving too much of yourself away, too soon, too freely, too openly. Not because you're weak, but because you're human, and because as women we're often taught that love means total access, that if you really care you should open every door, share every secret, and give someone the full map to your soul. But here's what no one tells you. Real love doesn't require you to give away your power. In fact, the right man won't want it. He won't want you to shrink, overshare, or seek his permission to feel valuable. He'll admire the parts of you that remain just out of reach, because mystery invites curiosity, and boundaries demand respect. Protecting your power isn't about being guarded or distant. It's about being intentional. It's knowing that your story is sacred. Your emotions, your past, your insecurities, your finances, your friendships, those aren't casual talking points. They're pieces of your identity. And if someone hasn't earned the right to hold them with care, they haven't earned the right to know them at all. You don't need to prove anything to be loved. You don't need to perform emotional gymnastics or hand over pieces of yourself hoping someone will stay. The right person stays because of your energy, your presence, your peace, not because you gave them backstage access to your every flaw. You are allowed to be kind and discerning, soft and self-protective. You can laugh, love, and connect deeply and still hold a part of yourself back. Not because you're hiding, but because you're honoring yourself. Your mystery isn't a manipulation tactic. It's the quiet confidence that says, I know who I am, and not everyone gets the full version of me. That's not cold, that's powerful. And ironically, it's that energy that draws in a partner who's worthy of knowing more. Because when a woman knows her value, she doesn't need to overshare to keep someone interested. She doesn't rush to give away her story. She lets it unfold, page by page, to someone who's proven they'll treat every word with respect. Protecting your power is about knowing the difference between openness and vulnerability, between sharing to build connection and bleeding out in hopes of being rescued. It's about recognizing that silence can speak just as loudly as confession. and that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply say nothing at all. So take a moment. Think about what you've been sharing. Think about who's been getting pieces of you they didn't earn. And ask yourself, what if those conversations cost you your peace, your confidence, your emotional leverage? It's never too late to take your power back. You don't owe anyone a minute excess. You don't need to explain your boundaries. And you don't need to apologize for keeping sacred things sacred. You are the prize. Your presence is enough. And your power, it's not in how much you give. It's in what you choose to protect. So as this video ends, make a choice. Not to close off, but to close ranks. Tighten your circle. Sharpen your standards. Hold your truth like the crown it is. Let them earn the right to know you, because you are worth that level of respect. And from this moment forward, you don't hand over your power. You wear it.